Hello, this is old Mr. Kent of MrKent.com. I should put a link to my website. Then you know what MrKent.com is all about. Anyway, it's been there for, the site has been around for 25 plus years, but I had to rebuild it recently. So that's not important. Let's talk about what's going on today. Today, I'm 82 years old, and I've been going on these E-Trike rides and telling my life story. And so now I'm up to the time of my life where probably I had the most excitement and the most fun of all time. A lot of traffic. I'm in my neighborhood, which has got barking dogs and a lot of traffic. I don't like to go to the same neighborhood all the time, so I try to skip around. Anyway, so and then if you're interested in watching the whole thing, at the end of this video there'll be a link that says life story. You click on that, it'll take you to a playlist, and you can see all the videos I've made from the time I was a child. I mean, I didn't make the videos then. You know, that's kind of a crazy thing. Let's get started, okay? So today I've got a couple of exciting stories to talk about. One, well, we'll do the first one, and I got a couple more maybe. This lady had two dogs, but now this was in Pasco. I was in Pasco, and Pasco, Washington, and she had two dogs that she wanted to have bred, and they were little Shih Tzu dogs or something like that, and but I had to fly her from Pasco, Washington, down to it's called Aurora State Field in Oregon, which is a little bit south of Portland. And so I said, yeah, I'd do that. So the day we started to do that, it was terribly windy, coming from the west, and that's the direction I had to fly. So I knew it was going to be bumpy and everything. So anyway, most guys would have said, let's do it another time. But I said, okay, we'll try it. So we put the dogs in the plane, in their cage, and took off, heading west. Actually, she wanted to get some pictures of Mount St. Helens, because that wasn't too long after Mount St. Helens erupted. And so she wanted to get some pictures of that crater that they talk about. And so I headed in that direction, which is not directly toward the field we were headed to, but on the way. And so the wind was blowing so hard that when I looked down at the freeway, the cars were going faster than we were. And we were going about 100 miles an hour. So you can imagine how much wind there was. And also, when we had to go north of Mount Adams is a big mountain, and there were clouds over the top of Mount Adams, but the wind was moving them, and you could see the clouds moving over the top of the mountain, which means they were moving who knows how many miles an hour over the top of that mountain. So anyway, we flew and flew and flew, and then I had to get up to about 13,000 feet to get over there so she could look down into the Mount St. Helens crater. And so we kept climbing. We got up there, and then the rules were, at that time, you had to fly counterclockwise so that the pilot would be on the inside of the circle as you went around the crater, in order to be able to to control the plane better. So anyway, but as we got there, I thought, if I go counterclockwise, then I'm going to be on the south side of the crater, which when wind comes into that crater, it's going to swirl around, and there'll be a whole bunch of turbulence, because as it goes over the top of the edge of the crater, it speeds up, and then it drops down, and so it causes a lot of turbulence. And so I thought, I doubt there's going to be anybody else out flying today, because it was so windy. And so I thought, I'll just go clockwise around it. So we got up closer and closer and close. And of course, it's all wooded area around there. And we kept coming closer, and she started snapping pictures. And of course, I wanted to see inside the crater too. So I'm flying the plane, and I'm looking over the crater, and flying the plane, and looking over the crater, and going in the direction I'm supposed to go. And then, then I looked down at the ground, and we're actually starting to go backwards. The trees are coming out from underneath of us, and because of the excess speed of the wind going up over the crater, it was going more than 100 miles an hour, and I was going backwards and being sucked towards the crater. So I thought, that's all. So I made a sharp left turn, 180 degrees, and put it into a dive, full power, and we went down. That way I had plenty of speed, and we put it into a dive, and we came out of it okay. And so then I got down to lower altitude where it's always better if you're at lower altitudes when you're in a heavy wind. The lower you get, the more turbulence there is, but the slower the wind is blowing because of the interference of all the stuff on the ground. So anyway, I got us down to a level area, high enough up that we were okay, and then started flying toward Aurora State Field. And so we're flying along, and I thought, I better tune in on their frequency and tell them I'm coming. We were about 15 miles out, I suppose, and as I turned it on, the intercom, the frequency, the guy that ran the FBO there, he said, it's clear to land now at Aurora State because the wreckage has been cleared from the runway. I don't know what kind of wreckage it was, but it was so windy. See, and that runway ran north and south, and the wind was blowing from the west at a terrible high speed. And so somebody tried to come in and land in a crosswind. That's the dangerous thing, is landing in a crosswind. So somebody tried to come in and land and didn't make it, I guess you'd say. So I thought, okay, well, we're going to give it a try. Now, one thing somewhere along the line before that, a guy had showed me how to do wheel landings. I'll put some pictures up of a plane doing a wheel landing. Generally, a plane comes in a little like a tail dragger, does a 3-point landing. It comes in at it, and the tail wheel and the front wheels all touch at the same time. That would be called a perfect 3-point landing. Okay, and the only thing is if it's really windy, that's hard to do because it's going to blow you off. You're getting slow enough that the wind's going to blow you all over the place. But I had learned how to do a wheel landing. That's when you come in fast and you let the front wheels touch down, and then once you're down on the ground, then you pull the throttle and slow down. And so I had learned how to do that. And basically, if you're a tail dragger pilot and never been able to do a wheel landing, the secret is, as you're on final, is now every plane has a little trim control. Well, almost every plane. The Flybaby didn't have one, but anyway, almost every plane has a trim control on the floor between the front seats. And if you push it forward, it trims the plane to go down. If you pull it back, it trims. So it depends on how much weight you got in the plane and who's sitting where, and then you adjust the trim while you're flying, and then it'll just stay level like you want it. But if you're going to come in and do a wheel landing, then you trim the nose down. But now you have to hold on to it while you're coming in to land because it wants to go down. And you don't do a whole lot, but enough to just. And so then as you're coming down, it wants to go down, but you're keeping it straight. And then when the wheels touch the ground, then you can let go of the yoke and take the pressure off, because the plane's going to continue to want to go down, and it doesn't bounce off the runway. Because when I was trying to learn how to do wheel landings, I didn't know that, so I'm coming down, and it just going so fast that it didn't want to stay on the ground and bounce around. So anyway, I knew how to do that. So we're coming in, and it was like probably the worst crosswind I'd ever landed in. And we're coming in, and we got down there, and sure enough, we landed okay. And we taxied over and dropped the dogs off, and then turned around and went home. Going home was pretty fast. So that's going backwards. Now I got a story about going sideways, and I think I got time to tell that. When we lived in Pasco, and my wife's parents lived in Lewiston, Idaho, and I've already talked about that, but it's about an hour flight from Pasco to Lewiston. And we would go over there a lot on the weekend and visit and come home. And so we went over there one Saturday, and my family, my wife and me and our 2 children. And so we went over there and spent the day there. And then we're getting ready to come back. And we started taxiing, and we told the tower that we're ready to take off. And the tower said, we've got, I can't remember what it was they called it now. Anyway, it was like terrible downdrafts and all kinds of stuff. My mind, at this age, my mind goes blank. I can't remember names of things. Anyway, it's kind of weather you don't ever want to fly in. And they said it was to the south. Well, so we're going to go west, and so they cleared us for takeoff, and we took off. Now, when you fly out of Lewiston towards Pasco, once you get up to altitude, you can actually see the beacon light at Pasco from 100 miles away. And so we're climbing, and we had to go over a little pass. Once you get over that pass, then you can see it. And so we had to get up to like 5,000 feet to get over the pass. And so we're flying along, and normally, always, when you're flying from Lewiston to Pasco, it's a straight line, and so Lewiston's going to be directly behind you. So we're going along, and we're flying, and I'm looking for the Pasco beacon out the front window, and of course, I can't see a beacon. And I'm looking, and then I just happened to look down on the ground. Now remember, it's totally black. It's nighttime. I look down on the ground, and the lights on the ground are moving sideways. They're moving out to the left. And so I thought, oh, we're getting into that bad weather. It's already up here. And so I thought, I got to do 180 because Lewiston's right behind me. So I started banking the plane to look around behind me, and Lewiston was off to the side. I was being blown around by the wind and didn't even know it because it was dark out. And so I turned around, I headed towards Lewiston as fast as I could, and we landed, and we stayed all Saturday night in Lewiston. Only problem is, I had a Sunday school class to teach Sunday morning, and so we got up early Sunday morning, and we figured out the storm's over. Well, it was still real windy, and so, like as always, I stayed as low as I could. I mean, we were flying over trees that were being blown sideways, and we came into Pasco and landed into the wind, and that's good. That's always good. But I got a bump here. But then when you try to turn around a tail dragger, it likes to work like a windmill. And I won't go into all the details, but I had to make a U-turn on the runway and head back to where I always park. And so I I just won't go into all the details, but you have to give it lots of power on the engine, and you have to hold the elevator up and down at the right time. And so I got it turned around, and we're headed back to the parking area, and then all of a sudden a gust of wind hits us, and we swing around like a windmill again. And so I kept getting, a little closer. Finally, we get over to where I wanted to tie the plane down. I didn't want to go park it with all the other planes because it was the wind was blowing that thing everywhere. And so I pulled up to where there's some chains to tie down, and I had to keep the motor running and at a high RPM to keep my feet on the brakes to keep the plane from turning around and everything again. So my wife and my son, they jumped out to hook up the tie down chains. Well, so my wife was up front, and then all of a sudden the wind hit me, and the back of the plane swung swung to the left in the back. Well, my son just happened to be back there, and he wasn't very old. He's the one I'm living with now, and he happened to be back there, and the plane knocked him down and rolled over him, the tail wheel, Anyway, it didn't run over him, I guess, because I was in the plane. I didn't see what happened, but anyway, it knocked him down, and he stood up on the other side of the airplane, and then they finally got it turned so they could tie it down and safely turn the engine off, and and I went and taught my Sunday school class. So anyway, that's stories of flying backwards at Mount St. Helens and sideways near Lewiston, Idaho. And things like that happen. And of course, like I said, a lot of guys wouldn't fly in those kind of instances, but I'm just not that smart. So I just took off and did my best. Anyway, so I guess that's the end of today's stories. We're running out of time. I've got some more stories. I want to know if you want me to keep telling flying stories, I'll keep telling flying stories. They're not all exciting. Some of them are funny. But if you're tired of my flying stories, I'll jump ahead a few years to when I got rid of my airplane. So let me know in a comment, and I'll keep doing what I'm doing if you want me to, or I can speed things up. And just so I want you to enjoy the videos. All right? So thank you for watching this video, and God bless.